Welcome back, Wise Chat. Producer Henry here, saying thank you for joining us for Wisecrack Live. It is Wednesday, July 17th. Michael's going to be right with us. We're going to get right to it. There's a lot to cover today. See you in a moment.
Whew. What's up, everyone? It's July 17th. This is Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns. I'm joined by producer Henry. Producer Henry, are you still coming down from the high of you and Lux commandeering our feed for an Elden Ring stream?
We didn't even get to pause button discourse, so yeah, I'm just starting to get high off of that stream, if that reads.
Well, that was fun. I was tuning in whenever a meeting I was on was over, or I didn't have to pay attention to a colleague. It was very fun. So if you're a game person, if you're an Elden Ring person, or if you're just a Henry and Lux person, you can go check that out. The VOD still exists. And the plan, I think, is to start teasing out a gaming-focused stream helmed by those gentlemen on Patreon for a bit. And then when we launch our second channel, it'll be a whole thing that exists over there. And when the second channel... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, contrary to what some commentators believe, I'm not an AI that operates out of Michael's hat. I showed face that day.
Or are you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying AI can do a lot. I'm just saying AI can do a lot. So that's all I want to say is AI can do a lot. I'm not confirming or denying anything being said other than AI can do a lot. I'm glad to see everyone in the chat right now. Please do, as always, like this stream as you pop in. It helps us very much. Let me know if anyone else is excited for the boys finale. I am. And let me know if anyone else watched the Acolyte finale. I did.
Whoa, it finished?
No one asked for it. Yeah, it finished. Finale came out last night. I'm going to give you guys my take on it. No one asked for it.
Yeah,
it's ahead. Less bad than other Star Wars shows. Even though it was pretty bad, there were some parts that were very cool, and there were some good ideas present that they did not lean into.
So have you watched all the series that they've dropped so far?
Well, I'm embarrassed that you're going to make me admit that, but yes, I have.
Okay, because I have watched everything up until the Acolyte, and I kind of want to triangulate off of you how I may feel going in, because if it's done, I can binge it, you know? How'd you feel about Boba Fett?
I thought it was bad.
Okay, I thought Boba Fett was horrendous. How'd you feel about Obi-Wan?
I thought it was pretty bad, saved only by the fact that Ewan McGregor rips, and that there was a few interesting sequences.
I enjoyed some of the emotional texture of Obi-Wan, but thought the plot was complete nonsense.
Yeah, like seeing someone like Ewan McGregor performing in a role like that, I feel like it's like if you took a really good chef from a high-end restaurant and then took him to a school cafeteria and you were like, hey, make a good meal with this. You know, because like the writing and the structure is bad, and Ewan McGregor is such a good actor. He's someone that's gonna like take it seriously and add some pathos to it. I think it seems like the Lucasfilm stuff has the same problem that a lot of the Marvel stuff does, is that it's all done by a committee. They don't really give writers and creators enough room to cook on their own. And I think you can sense that definitely in a show like The Acolyte. But, I would say, how would I rank it? The Acolyte is not better than The Mandalorian. It's better than Boba Fett. Better than Obi-Wan. It's better than, why am I forgetting the last show?
Ahsoka?
It's better than Ahsoka.
I expect it to be about that quality, like Ahsoka quality.
I would say slightly better than Ahsoka. Main reason slightly better than Ahsoka is they shot on location for some things. So there's elements of the show where they're clearly at a place outside. natural lighting, things of that nature, which I think makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, that was a huge sell for me on Shogun, is how much of the environmental considerations were part of the cinematography.
Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. I know that's what everyone came here for, but a lot going on. I'm glad to see a lot of you here. And yeah, I know the best thing about the Acolyte was is boring to say, it actually had really good lightsaber fights. And then Manny Jacinto rips. Just a cool guy. I want to see Manny Jacinto in more stuff. And he has really cut arms. Manny Jacinto, you see those arms and you want to do push-ups. You want to go to the gym, things of that nature. So a lot to talk about today. As you can tell from our thumbnail, here's some stuff that's happening. We had Kyle Gass has been kicked out of Tenacious D after making a comment about the demise of, Brandon Pang, I agree with you, the demise of former president. That former president has reemerged with a Band-Aid on his ear at the Republican National Convention or Committee, whatever it's called. JD Vance, who I've learned I am the same age as, and I can't stop thinking about it, is the vice presidential nominee for the Republicans. He wrote a really dumb book that got turned into a really dumb movie.
Thank you, Ron Howard.
And JD Vance is also someone who is completely created by liberal fetishization of rural America. So thank you, Hollywood. Thank you, New York publishing industry. Thank you, Yale University. Thank you, Tiger Mother. Thank you, all of the liberal heroes that created this monster. This is a person who says that daylight savings time reduces the number of children made because people fucking reproduce less during those hours. So there you go. Dr. Ruth, Lex is out here just listing deaths. I don't know if this is confirmed. It was pointed out to me that Dr. Ruth participated in the Nakba, which is the
I did hear about that.
The genocide of Palestinian people committed by Israel in the 1940s. So, I don't know. Chris Maverick says, did Tenacious D officially break up? Jack said all plans on hold. Yeah, it seems bad though. It seems bad. And I'm gonna flaunt some LA privilege right now, guys. So get ready. Jack Black we've talked about this. Some of you know this. It's canon. He walks around my neighborhood a lot. And normally I think it's cool. Like there's days I'm sitting on my couch right over there and I look out the window and I see Jack Black walk by and I think that's cool. I kind of want to boo him when next time I see him. And we'll talk about it because I just want to note, here's what I want to note. I am not here to say that what Kyle Gass said is cool or good. But I'm going to say when your whole bit is that you are a satanic metal acoustic band forged by Beelzebub himself, when you have made a movie, didn't they make in like the most recent Tenacious D movie, didn't they try to like kill the president or something?
I heard they had a music video where they dress up as the KKK to infiltrate the White House because they're trying to kill the president. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, you do all of that, and then
a comedy metal show is where you expect to hear these things.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that I just think it's really corny that is happening. So I don't know. Yeah, but it's like Jack Black wants to prioritize making Biden and the Kung Fu Panda franchise happy over like his friend. Friendship is rare is all that I'm saying. And then of course, what's Javelin Jables? We still have a presidential election that's happening. Biden's just out here just saying stuff. It's a lot. If we get 69 420 people on this stream, I don't know. Honestly, I almost said something that would probably get me canceled, so I'll stop. But we'll do whatever.
Pretty high aspirations, but yeah, 69 420.
I would say realistically, I would do anything. I would do anything. I'd chill hole, whatever you want. So let's look at some comments to get started. So is Wiener Vader the first one you have? Or Wiener Vader?
No, I have Chris Brooks. It's from the
Right.
homeschooling video.
Okay, so we made a video on homeschooling. We already talked about this. No one watched it. That's fine. I don't say that in a bitter way. We take swings with topics. There's someone gave really good feedback in the chat on Monday that I think helped in this regard, because I think, yeah, just a topic that I don't think anyone on the internet's really caring about right now. I don't think it's like a hot button issue. So that's fine. It's a good video. If you ever get around to watching it, some great points are made. And we asked the question, is homeschooling weird or dangerous? Clickbaity title. We got to do what we got to do. Someone in the comments said it was propaganda, and I tried to go back and forth with them for a while to engage in good faith, and it wasn't worth it. Why do I do this? Chris Brooks says both weird and dangerous. As a highly conflicted public school teacher, I find that students who have been non-religiously homeschooled are much more curious and competent than public school lifers who've learned to see education as a mere transaction. Not to worry, however, after our visionary governor rams through his voucher program next year, the education debate will finally end, decided by the magic of the free market. That sucks. Yeah, I mean, with the homeschooling thing, this sounds weird, but like if me and my wife didn't have to like work a ton, I would be very confident that we could homeschool my daughter and make her very smart and curious and competent, except she wouldn't know math at all. But there's calculators. The thing I think about with school sometimes, and maybe the reason I wouldn't want to homeschool is like the atomization. I think there's something, and I'm sure some of you who are hanging in the chat have homeschooled or do homeschool. The thing I just think about is like wanting my kid to be in an environment where they learn to be around others, and especially where they experience all types of like racial, cultural, and socioeconomic diversity that they just wouldn't have in my house. My house is on some cracker ass shit, if I'm gonna be honest with you. So I need to get her out of this house so she doesn't,
Yeah,
But
I get.
yeah,
I get what you're saying too, because I think even in the best conditions of homeschool, like you're conditioning your kid for a meritocracy that doesn't map 1-1 onto like the real social reality of life. Um,
yeah,
I think a lot about just like going through high school. There's kind of a phase you go through where you start realizing like adults don't like authorities projected, and some adults are just bullshitting you, and like
yeah.
sometimes you have to like interact with like you have to come up with solutions with people among your age group that may get around like some bullshitty vice principal or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back on school, and I'm someone that, it's canon that I notoriously hated school, but, um, the stuff I got out of school is like learning how to be a person, learning how to interact with others, learning how to handle conflict, learning about movies and music and comics and things that were cool from other people.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
had some
yeah.
really cool older teachers that did a lot to undo a lot of ageism I might have otherwise had as a teenager, you know?
Yeah. It really just takes one or two cool teachers as well to make a huge difference. Um, but then when it comes to like learning, I don't necessarily think school is always the best place for learning. I think everyone learns differently. I know my thing when I was growing up was more, if I found something I was into, I would just dig into that on my own. That's why I was bad at school sometimes, because if I got interested in like a period of history rather than like paying attention and continuing to go with what we were studying in class, I would just get some books out or go on the old Alta Vista or Netscape Navigator, or Microsoft Encarta, and try to learn stuff for myself. I remember there's a period where I got into movies in high school, and we didn't have like movie classes or whatever. So I started skipping school to go to the like art house theater in the Orlando area, which is I referenced this before in a stream, and someone in the chat named the exact theater I used to go to. But I would like get money from my parents that would supposedly be for like gas or lunch or something, and then I would just steal snacks or eat other stuff and then go to matinee movies and skip school. But then I got in trouble for skipping school, and they told me that it was like the first day of the second semester of senior year. I got called to the office, and they told me that if I missed one more like unexcused day, that I wouldn't be able to graduate. That sucked. There you go. The next comment's from Bartman64 or Bartman. I don't know. Do you want to be Bartman or do you want to be Bartman? If the early pandemic taught me anything, public school isn't perfect, but I definitely couldn't do the job with 2 kids, let alone 20. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. That's tough. I can't imagine having a kid during the pandemic and having to work and that's crazy to me that people get ready for duh corner with your friend Michael. But it's pretty crazy that for chunks of the pandemic, people were just expected to like do their jobs and expected to like school their children. It's just a lot. That was a lot.
I had a friend who his compromise, even with not doing homeschooling, is like if he sends his kids to public school and then like through online parenting groups finds what the state's not teaching and supplements that at home, it's still a second job, you know?
Yeah. So this is from Becca and Gavin. I homeschooled my child from middle school as racist first grade teacher, labeled him a troublemaker along with the rest of the non-white children in her class. Label followed him through elementary school and school years. The meetings were so weird. He wasn't disruptive, did his schoolwork, but they thought he needed medication for ADD because he read books secretly during class. Horrible. God forbid a child read books. When I did that as a white girl, they thought that should be in the GATE program. I think that's gifted and talented education. Anyways, I sent him back to public school and high school, and his teachers loved him. Took his education seriously, participated actively, so he remained well above proficiency. And this person, their sister did that, and their curriculum was religious based, and she ended up with holes that she doesn't recognize. Oh wow, yeah. I mean, I definitely see, and that's something we briefly touched on in the videos. There's a history of racial inequity and profiling in the public education system, which is why there's a lot of examples of people of color taking themselves out of the public school system or parents taking their children out so that they don't have to deal with that. Lee Hayes.
These next ones are from the stream Monday.
Great. And if you guys didn't check out the Monday stream, we tried to parse some stuff out about political violence in relationship to recent events. We read some philosophy. We talked about some stuff. We laughed. We cried. I asked you guys what poppers did and figured it out while we were discussing it. Philosophical definitions are difficult, nuanced. Thanks for working through this video. Hey, we tried. We live in an era where people don't want to do nuance. And then Wiener Vater says, anyone know if Yes Please ships beyond California or wherever this show is filmed? I am broadcasting live from the state of California. But yeah, Yes Please Coffee. And, I'll use that as a little transition. Our partner for the streams, as always, friggin' Yes Please Coffee. We love these guys. They make really good coffee. It's roasted here in Southern California. It's really good. Every single person I've talked to thus far who's tried Yes Please has had a really good experience with it and says it rips. I really like it. I've been drinking it consistently. I haven't pooped in 2 months, but I love the coffee. That's a joke. But we have a partnership with them, so you get 20% off if you order it and use code Wisecrack. I like that they have a zine they make. I keep showing you this because I just think it's fun. They have playlist. Here's the pictures of their staff. They're real people. There's just 4 of them. And look at them. They're cool. 4 cool people making coffee. It's an independent company. They're not paying us to say any of this. I reached out to them because I like their coffee so much. We get a small kickback if you order through us. So if you want to support the show and get coffee, this is the best way to do it. So please check out Yes Please. There's a link in the description. Daniel from the past finally made it to a live stream. When they're glad you're here. Yeah, John Popper is what I was talking about, so do not give me the runaround. Alley Cattail showed up, said, lick and like the stream if you're live with us right now. Meow. Please do like the stream. It helps us a lot. If you think people might like the stream, you could share it with them. Someone stopped drinking coffee and helped their body, and I think that's great. Jen B says, boyfriend is a high school teacher. It's gotten way worse. They're not allowed to fail kids who have become unruly. Teachers are blamed out, but parents make no effort. Yeah, being a teacher now sounds like it sucks. And I say that fully acknowledging that education's arguably the most important job in our society.
Yes.
I think teachers are arguably more important than many of the jobs
the most The
Go ahead.
most like direct within the apparatus way of improving everything is to just increase the budget towards education.
Yeah. So it's very it's very, very, very important. Few things that can happen more important than education, but it's a system that is not supported, and we don't fund schools enough. We don't have enough teachers, and I think that like parents sometimes don't have the resources to do what they need to do at home. Sean's brother's a middle school math teacher and has the patience of a saint. It's just tough. It's tough, man. And I think like I harp on this a lot, but I think that many of our societal problems and issues really do come back to the vibrancy and the stability and the emphasis put into our public education systems. I think if we increase school budgets, if we increased teacher salaries, if we decreased class sizes, I just think if we really put an insane amount. I mean, think about all the money we put into like the military.
Yeah.
What if we took some of the military budget and put that into education? What if we created opportunities for educators that made it a much more attractive career? Like, what if there was a thing where, you got to have a master's to be a teacher, but we'll pay you to get that degree if you go into teaching afterwards, for a certain amount of years or whatever it might be. And what if we tried to reach out to people? Like, think about how many out of work writers and intellectuals and like academics there are. So many writers who are really smart can't find work. Tons of philosophers and historians, people with like PhDs can't get work because the university system is contracting so much. So many filmmakers, musicians, artists struggle to get work. What if we created avenues for all those people to get involved in education, even if it was part-time? Imagine if you were a musician, you're a jazz piano player, and you're struggling. What if there's an opportunity to get like a part-time job? You make a good salary, you get benefits, and for half of your week, you're at school teaching music to kids, and you still have time to go play with the quartet over at Dino's Cigar Bar or record your own stuff or whatever it might mean. What if you were a up and coming, or not even up and coming? What if you were just an actively coming filmmaker, and you spend half your time teaching filmmaking youth, whatever it might be. Someone said, Surf Mora says, your culture is too ignorant. What's your culture, Surf Mora? I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to know what it is. But yeah, I just think like, I don't know. If I was the czar, I would do something like that and just put an insane amount of effort and resources into education. And I think it would make a lot of things better. But we'll never do it. Like, we'll give government subsidies to Elon Musk and Exxon and whatever. We're not going to do that. Ooh.
Yeah, I think your mic switched mid-rant because you got a bit fuzzier.
Henry, hold it down for just a sec.
He is navigating and he is tech supporting himself. See Michael in action, discovering his audio settings, looking through his menus, determining which inputs are which outputs and which outputs are inputs. Thank you for bearing with this, chat. But to continue on, as Michael was saying, and as I said earlier, yes, education in general. I think it's taken for granted that literacy is something you must exercise and educate, and history is something that must be continuously taught. Too many people make the mistake of like the kids just being better in the next generation.
Keep holding it down. I'm gonna leave and be right back.
Oh wow. Okay, he is off, and I am rambling about my own personal times. Oh boy, what are we doing here? All right. Well, no longer a play-by-play. Do I dare turn my camera on and post shoulders, or do I try to form a coherent thesis out of the education ramble Michael was going on? You know what? Life is going good. I've wrapped up an edit. We're working on this week's video for the channel. It's making me consider ethics in politics in new ways. I always like when I see a piece of information editing a video that sends me on a historical goose chase. In this case, to give you a little taste of what's going on, this isn't the main thesis of the video, but we get into the history of voter suppression and just the numbers between the 1880s and the 1910s in minority American participation and the way it was actively diffused. It's a single fact we state in the video, but we go from like 60% participants black male to 2% participants black male.
Can you hear me?
Yes, it definitely is the webcam camera for sure.
So now I'm on headphones because my computer stopped recognizing my microphone input. I'll try again in a second, guys. I know that this is not the best. So
Chris Maverick says now I'm silent as well.
Wow. Things are going poorly. Things are going really poorly over here.
You were talking too altruistically about funding education if you were czar.
No.
Okay, that was crisper.
Oh, we got it back, I think. We got it back. Hold on.
Was I going
okay, we're
in
back.
and out as well, or was that just a misread in chat?
I don't know. The feds are trying to get us down. Thank you so much for everyone who stuck around for that, and so sorry.
Thank you, Chris.
That you had to deal with that. Thank you so much. So yeah, like I was saying before, so it's the night I lost my virginity as a rainy evening, and I'm kidding. Not going to tell that story ever. That's what I'll tell actually. If we get to 69,420 people, I'll tell the entire story of how I lost my virginity.
You know, I was watching Watchmen the other day, and I was just wondering, why did Rorschach's mask look like the night I lost my virginity? Your audio. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we're going to get cooking. Aaron, you're not the problem, but if you're here, please like the stream. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Okay, so a lot of stuff we want to talk about today, a lot of stuff going on. So let's maybe start with this. Let's pull up the Variety article. Okay. And again, just as a little real restart here, guys. You are watching Wisecrack Live. It's our streaming show we do every Wednesday. Thank you for hanging out. I'm Michael Burns. His producer, Henry. We're doing what we do. A lot on the docket today. Is always just a reminder, you can hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. I am going to go check out some emails later in the show. I know we got a lot of good stuff there. And if you email, we don't get to it right away. I promise I do keep track of those things. Also a reminder as well, if you're into it, our videos and a lot of our streams do come up on Spotify. So do check those out. If you're a Spotify user, go subscribe to Wisecrack over there because it helps us. And it's all about helping us, and it's all about helping you help us and helping us help you. Now, a thing that has happened since we were last together is that JD Vance is probably going to be the next vice president of the United States of America. My main concern with JD Vance is that we're the same age. I feel like he looks older than me, but maybe it's just how he dresses, but I look at him and I think to myself, he looks older than how I look in this sort of, I don't want to say bloated in a disrespectful way, but something like that. He looks a type of way. But JD Vance, we're not here to talk about his politics necessarily, which are bad. We can get into that in more detail if you all want. But there's a Variety article that producer Henry pulled for us that talks about how Hollywood helped make him. And it's interesting because Hollywood is often painted, of course, as, a liberal bastion. People talk about the state of California and things of that nature. Sandhill Farmer in the chat says, is a real guy. JD Vance is an absolute chump. The response I've seen from most people is most rural Americans do not like this man. There's a podcast, the Trillbillies, with some fellows who I think are from Kentucky.
Trillbilly Workers Party?
Yeah. And they historically hate this guy with a passion, and he sort of has built his reputation on this idea that he's some rural Appalachian do-gooder. But, every single thing about him in his adult life reeks of, for lack of a better term, like liberal elite privilege. I mean, he went to Yale Law School. He was mentored by, is it Amy Chow, the Tiger Mother professor woman?
He seems to romanticize Appalachia as something he escaped from, and that he's now like, he was so like not meant for it. It's very like spiteful of where he comes from.
Yeah. And, he wrote a book about his background. That book got turned into a movie. The publishing establishment loved him. Hollywood loved him. There is one, and I don't know if it comes up in this. There was a quote from one of his friends or colleagues that says the thing that actually turned him into a conservative or like a far right person was the reactions to the movie. Because the reactions to the movie were like, this shit is ass. It is a terrible movie. And that turned him against, the liberal media that made him. So we'll check out this article. It's worth knowing some stuff about this guy because realistically speaking, from all the data we have ahead of us right now, this person is very likely to be the next vice president of the United States. I have a dumb question for everyone, and this is going to exhibit that maybe I didn't pay good enough attention in school. Is the rule that someone can you only be president for 2 terms or 2 consecutive terms?
2 terms.
Okay, so that means that
pretty sure we've had at least one president who did 2, a term and then didn't, and then a term, and that counted as 2. Although that may have been during the age of it being a gentleman's agreement, because it wasn't until like the 1930s that it was codified. I can't remember which president it was. It may have been Garfield.
Yeah, but what I'm basically saying is, Trump can't be president 2 times in a row now, right? This is his last one.
Correct.
Great. But yeah, so this guy, JD Vance, is at least going to be our vice president for 4 years. And if anything were to happen to Donald Trump, he'd be president. We should know some stuff. So the article says, on day 1 of the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump tapped JD Vance to be his vice presidential running mate. Let me know in the chat what you think JD stands for. We know that it's just dance, I think, legally. I've said it could be Jello Dick. I want to know in the chat what your favorite JD option is. And with that announcement, a 4-year-old movie, Hillbilly Elegy, leapt almost instantly to Netflix's top 10. For many Americans, that chicken fried Bildungsroman, I always say German words wrong, Bildungsroman, will be their introduction to a Veep with less than 2 years government experience. In both the book and its middling Netflix adaptation, forgettable but for a fiery turn from Glenn Close as Mwa, the woman who raised young JD while his mother was dealing with drug addiction and deadbeat boyfriends, Vance portrayed himself as an Appalachian kid from poor stock who had escaped the Rust Belt for an Ivy League education and a lucrative career. It was that dimension of Vance's narrative that clearly attracted both Ron Howard and producer Brian Grazer, both self-avowed liberals who may have created a monster by legitimizing his origin story, much as The Apprentice producer Mark Burnett did by giving Trump a reality TV spotlight back in 2004. I mean, this is worth noting. It's not incidental that both of these individuals, Donald Trump, JD Vance, were sort of brought into mainstream consciousness by the entertainment and media infrastructure. Now, Trump, before he was even The Apprentice, he was featured on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, became a little media darling in his own right. And, for someone like Trump, his media persona was constructed. He was never as successful in business as we're meant to believe. In fact, he was largely a failure in business, but he used some media acumen and those opportunities to make money and create this perception of himself as a sort of business genius, which he is not and has never been. J.D. Vance did something similar, constructed a sort of self-mythologization of this Appalachian American man who just wanted to do good for himself, that was able to go to Yale and become a big boy. And what's more American than that? And both of these were narratives that were constructed largely in concert with the media. So the article goes on to say Hollywood loves a Horatio Alger story, and Vance's poor kid makes good art fit squarely into Howard and Grazer's sweet spot. But treating the book the way they had Cinderella Man and American Gangster, the American Gangster, why couldn't Frank Lucas become president? Honestly, I'll say it. I think Frank Lucas, American Gangster, would be a better and more moral leader than either Trump or J.D. Vance. I really think that. I think he was smarter. I think he had more tact. Am I saying he was a good guy? I'm not saying that. Also, great soundtrack. Would you rather listen to the Hillbilly Elegy soundtrack or the American Gangster soundtrack? I rest my case. Also, my perception of American Gangster is probably weird because I've watched that movie once and it was jet lagged at 4 a.m. in an apartment outside of Stockholm, Sweden. I'll say no more about that. But by treating the book the same way, they contributed to the myth-making that got Vance elected to the U.S. Senate in 2022, even as they missed what Hillbilly Elegy was really about. In the book, Vance used his personal experience, an upbringing that seemed the polar opposite of Trump's, to explain the disconnect between middle America and the coastal elites to the coastal elites. And I think it's important to note that this was a book that was not written for people in Appalachia to reflect their experience in a way. And I'll be honest, I haven't read the whole book. I've read excerpts. It's ass. I'm married to someone who's a bit of a scholar of literature who confirms the book is ass. But ironically, in the 8 years since it was published, Vance has joined their ranks. He left Middletown, Ohio, managed to earn a law degree from Yale. He went on to run a venture capital fund backed by Peter Thiel, who also bankrolled his Senate campaign while becoming a familiar guest on cable news and a commentator for CNN. Peter Thiel, bad guy. And sometimes on the show, you hear me say that someone is a bad guy, and you might think you should substantiate your claim, Michael. I'm not going to. But he's a bad guy. 1 second. 1 second. But sorry.
Are you going to leave camera again?
No, I'm not leaving camera. I'm here. Does everyone see me? But so again, we're talking about a person who has a self-mythology around themselves being this Rust Belt Appalachian guy, but then goes through the world of Yale and hedge funds and Peter Thiel being like boring Tony Stark or something like that, even worse than that. Now, at the time, Vance wasn't yet a politician, going back to the Variety piece. He wasn't even a Trump supporter. In 2016, he dismissed Trump. He said, I can't stomach him. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. When asked who he'd vote for, he said, I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, we talked about this last week a bit, or maybe on Monday. It is feeling more and more like all political life. Well, I guess there's two things we could say here. I'll start with the second point, which is that all political life feels like it's becoming a big act of kayfabe, because none of this is real. And the consequences of this are real. The material and economic effects are real. But the interactions, personas, and purported values of those in power are not real, right? Because you cannot go from someone who, when you're not as famous and when you're not as adjacent to power, we'll talk about Trump in these terms. He in another point, he called him like white Hitler. And say you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton and now be like 100% on his team. it shows one of two things: either a person who has no values and says whatever they think will make them most adjacent to power in a given moment, or someone who, let's say, does have values but is willing to sacrifice those values for the sake of adjacency to power.
I feel like
Another thing is, go ahead, Henry.
if you're trying to appeal to evangelicals of any sort of faith, they love a convert story, and it's very easy to wrench the kayfabe into that regarding, oh, I used to love Hillary, but I've seen the light, and now I'm here to help your guy.
Yeah, yeah. And what's up to everyone in the chat? Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you. The other thing, and we've talked about this before as well, is I think this exemplifies, to quote my friend Lady Gaga, the really bad romance of culture and politics we have in this country. The way in which someone like Trump, but here someone like Vance, utilizes a cultural influence and cachet to acquire and wield political power. And I think this is going to relate to, if we talk about the Tenacious D thing for a bit, I actually think in the opposite way, there's a clear overlap here. But to go on, it says, as before, Clinton lumped half of Trump's supporters into a basket of deplorables. Also, like, how did that ever happen? How did Hillary Clinton ever, as she ran such a bad campaign, she said, Pokemon, go to the polls, call people deplorables. And then when she lost, like, blamed other people. What a coward. Just one of the worst people ever. I'll say it. I think Hillary Clinton's bad. Sue me, Clinton. I dare you to sue me, Hillary Clinton. So it goes on to say, unlike so many of the books published in the lead up to someone's political candidacy, such as Obama's Audacity of Hope, Harris's The Truth We Told, Hillbilly Elegy wasn't written for readers of Vance's political persuasion. It served to explain to liberals why Trump would get elected that fall, inspiring waves of parachute journalism as reporters rushed to such communities to make sense of the strange turn national politics was taking. And again, too, like I don't know, it seems like the media and people in coastal cities would rather read a shitty book than like talk to a working person or a poor person to understand American politics. But there you go. It says, the media made celebrity himself. Trump ran as an outsider to the system that had failed so many Americans, yada, yada, yada. Vance laid out those concerns: poverty, opioid addiction, lack of access to higher education, and entire communities where the local economy had imploded, eliminating jobs and leaving housing stagnant. To be clear, all real problems, all very real and important problems that need to be addressed and are not being addressed. Clear and well-written, Vance's book offered a ground-level view of how decades of liberal policies hadn't been effective in communities like his, best reflected in his take on how honest, hardworking folks saw the food stamp system as unfair. I don't want to say out loud why they think it's unfair. I think many of us know there's some bad racial dynamics at play there.
Yeah, there's some propaganda out there at a cultural level about certain assumptions made about who receives what.
Yeah, these things happen. Someone said stream lag. Are we here still, friends? Are we here? I hope that we are. So let's see. And and to be clear, we can acknowledge that someone like Vance, I guess, like, isn't wrong to say that dominant American policies and economic ideologies have not served rural and working communities, but to say that that is a particularly liberal problem is missing the point. It's a neoliberal problem. It's a problem of an economic system largely purported and really pushed to the forefront by someone like Reagan. But that's neither here nor there. Always important for us to remember, and I'm not doing like a both sides are the same here, but both sides of the American political spectrum are undergirded by largely the same economic ideology. It is what it is. So in a way, the word memoir is misleading. Hillbilly Elegy worked better as a sociology text. So he argues that a vast segment of white working class America has felt disenfranchised. Offensive as it may sound to some, the Make America Great Again concept appeals to voters so preoccupied with their own day-to-day reality that they aren't nearly as focused on the rights of others, Black Americans, immigrants, welfare cases. Again, this is why like, I do not think that JD Vance is a stupid person, right? Like, I think you can be, and important to acknowledge here, we're not going to say that being smart makes one good.
It
But
allows them to recognize opportunity, whether or not that permits them to be consistent with their stated values.
yeah, like a lot of very evil, bad people are very smart. And, I think he knows what he's doing strategically. He makes a good point that, and we know this, like, so we have, a video coming out soon with our buds at Yellow Dot on climate change. And something we see when we look at voting trends around climate change is like, people know that it's bad, but people largely vote for things that have to do with their own material concerns. And it is true that the rhetoric of one party being like, I want to make your life better, and it's these people's fault that your life is bad, and I'm going to make your life better. In some ways, that is more effective rhetoric than we're going to make NATO good, and we're going to do all these systematic things and with like the law, but not speaking directly to you, right? I think that's why, one of the most inspiring campaigns on the liberal left side in America in recent years was the Bernie Sanders campaign, because he spoke directly to people and was like, I want to give you health care. I want to pay you more money. I want to help your debt get abolished, things like that. So in Vance's own words, I may be white. Anytime someone first says, I may be white, nothing good's going to come after that. But I do not identify with the WASPs of the Northeast. Instead, I identify with the millions of working class white Americans of Scotch-Irish descent who have no college degree. Do not pull the Irish into this shit. I hate, to these folks, poverty is a family tradition. Americans can call them hillbillies, rednecks, or white trash. I call them neighbors, friends, and family. And of course, it gets into like how Hollywood has a distorted view of these people. And it's true, like, most people who make stuff in Hollywood don't have that background. And often when we have, and the same thing happens with whether it's stories about poor black people or poor white people, most Hollywood stories fetishize poverty in a really bad way. I'm skipping ahead to Truth Be Told. It says many faith-based films do far better justice to red state spirit. But in Hillbilly Elegy, there's scenes where people say things like, if you got a problem with that, you can talk to the barrel of my gun. By contrast, the media romanticizes glamorous New York characters and careers like sex columnist or ad men, while reducing them to flyover states to variations on the banjo-picking hillbilly scene in Deliverance. And yeah, I mean, that's like the Deliverance gives us a picture of hillbillies as people that just want to like sexually assault you while they play banjo. Now, I kind of want to skip ahead to, let's see,
How
the second last word. It says Vance is out. Oh, go ahead, Henry.
I'm just questioning, like, I recognize Deliverance because I'm a film guy, but how widespread is its popularity as a cult movie? Is it still relatively well known as a referenceable item in pop culture?
I don't think it's that well known. In the chat, let us know how. We got a lot of Deliverance heads out there.
Have you seen Deliverance? Yeah.
Let us know. Not a fun hang. That's what I would say. It's not a fun hang.
If the Serbian film guy is hanging out in the chat and he hasn't seen Deliverance, it's right up your alley, buddy.
That guy's probably in jail now. Okay, so
all right, I scrolled down on the article though, where we get a
So the article, one of the main points here is that Vance's narrative is that he represents one type of American. When he got into the halls of power, he felt alienated. And he has some stuff in his book which I think is like untrue. Like there's stuff, and this is maybe a slight exaggeration, where he's like, when I went to Yale, these boys had forks, knives, and spoons. I said to myself, I'm used to picking up my food with a gravy slopstick. And he clearly is not true. It says he dealt with that phenomenon in his book, describing how he felt like an outsider at Yale. Instead of relating to the elites He navigated the system, got his degree, then returned to his roots, not literally, but in terms of conservative ideals. So you felt so alienated that you completely ingratiated yourself in that system, then had success in the liberal publishing sphere, then went to work for Peter Thiel in a hedge fund, then sold the film to Hollywood. Yeah, you must really hate the elites, bud. Speaking of Variety, in 2022, Ron Howard admitted to being surprised by his Trumpist turn. Struck me as a very moderate center-right kind of guy. He apparently wasn't interested in running for office. Obviously, that changed, as did his political views. 8 years later, the world knows what Trump stands for, and Vance has made a calculated choice to align himself with the ex-president, a strategy that paid off as he was picked to be the ultimate celebrity apprentice. So, that's some stuff about J.D. Vance. If anyone's read the book and you have thoughts, you can let us know. He's someone that's going to probably become a big part of cultural life in America. You did not miss the Tenacious D talk. We're going to get into that in just a second. So, yeah, we'll be a little quicker with that maybe. But so if what we have on the JD Vance side is an example of someone manipulating and wielding cultural forces to have political influence. Yeah, someone said simp your way to VP. And in that sense, I think it's almost taking cultural impact too seriously as like political impact or whatever it might be. I think we have the other side of that coin in the recent happenings with Jack Black and Kyle Gass, also known as Tenacious D, also known as The D. Before we keep cooking with that, just so you know, we're here. It's Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. We got a video on voting coming out Friday. I really want you guys to check that out. On Monday, our video with Yellow Dot, that's Adam McKay's production company that makes climate-based things. Our video with Yellow Dot's coming out, and in my interview with their director, Stacey Roberts Steele, is coming out over on their channel. If you want to get ready for it, you can head over and subscribe to Yellow Dot's channel, comment on one of their videos, let them know Wisecrack sent you. But definitely on Monday, I want you guys to go watch the video. On Monday, there's a chance, and Henry, I'll tell you more about this later, that on the stream, we're going to be joined by someone from Yellow Dot's team to chat a little bit. Who could it be? Who knows? But so I'm excited about that. So, and just a reminder again, if you're a coffee head, Yes Please Coffee. They are the official coffee partner of Wisecrack Live. They're a Los Angeles-based coffee roaster. They're a small team. They don't pay us to say this. This is a real partnership. Really like them. Really got some stuff going on. Also, guys, I think I've organized our next stream partnership. I'm going to try to finalize some stuff this week, but it's with a really cool book publisher. So we started with coffee. Next, we're doing books. So I think there's going to be a world where pretty soon you guys are going to be getting, I don't know the exact number, so if this is wrong, I apologize, but I think like 40% off books with, I would say, like the best publisher of sort of like philosophy, theory, cultural analysis books that currently makes things. So we're working on it. So we got our coffee, we got our books. Next up, I've been trying to work on getting us a non-alcoholic beer sponsor. So I'll say that. People, every week, someone's like, collab with Hassan Piker when? I would anytime. Hassan's cool. He's famous. He's a big deal. But I think that he maybe has bigger fish to fry. And I'm not a fish. I'm a dog. Okay, so let's talk about Tenacious D. So for those of you who don't know, Tenacious D, and this was when I was like in college, a cult. And you know that I'm old because I'm the same age as JD Vance. When I was in college, we were very much into Tenacious D. The original TV series came out on HBO, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
and I was
like 99, I think.
Yeah. So I had the DVD collection of the Tenacious D HBO run. And the amount of times we would watch that in the dorms at 2 a.m. just dying laughing was a lot. I would say the only thing we watched more in Tenacious D was probably like Jackass. And it was intense. It was extreme humor. There was relevant. There was Satanism in it. Wisecracklive666@gmail.com. There's a hallucinatory desert scene where Kyle gives birth to a butt baby.
Yeah, the Beelzeboss bit from the Pick of Destiny is something that's like a payoff from like the fight with Satan in their series.
Yeah. So it's a lot, and they do acoustic metal comedy, and it's pretty fun. Jack Black's a very good singer. Kyle Gass is a funny foil, and a good guitar player. And they've been on tour in Australia. And I don't think this is where it happened, but for all of our Australian heads, let me know if I'm saying this right. Is it Melbourne? Is that right if I say Melbourne? Let me know. So Jack Black, and then we're just looking at another Variety thing here. The stream's not sponsored by Variety. But Jack Black announced on social media he's canceling Tenacious D's current tour amid blowback against band partner Kyle Gass, who made a controversial comment at their concert in Australia. Also, Australians tell me why are your politicians and stuff such snitches? So here's what happens, right? They did a whole thing where because it was his 64th birthday, also the guy's like 64, let him fucking live. They bring like a cake out on stage. I think there was literally a demon on stage in like a demon costume when this happened.
Yeah.
And they gave him the cake and they said, make a birthday wish. And Gass said, don't miss Trump next time. Now, am I going to say that that's like funny? Not necessarily, but is that something that tons of people have said, tons of jokes on Twitter have made about that, tons of comedians have talked about this? Yes. Am I going to say that in the context of you're in Australia, you are a metal comedy edgy band, and you already have made a music video in which your band attempts to like kill the president? Is making that reference something that should get you canceled? I don't know. Killer Mike made a similar reference. I'm gonna like Google it so I can make sure I get this right because I don't want to.
Go ahead and Google.
So Killer Mike Trump. Wow, let's see.
I filmed a burlesque show in 2015 that was like political satire themed, and they beheaded a Trump there before Kathy Griffith stole it from them.
Wow. Okay, I'm 99% sure the Killer Mike said something about Trump at a recent show. That was it was similar to what Kyle Gass said. Was sort of like a I hope they get him next time type thing. Either way, so we're not here to say that what Kyle Gass said was like good or cool or funny, but I think it is to say that the reaction feels a little bit extreme. So hold on. Let me go back to the article. And then, so what had happened is an Australian politician, if there's any Australians here now, I don't think you are because I think it's a weird time for you. An Australian politician was like, we don't condone violence, kick him out of the country. And this relates to the whole political violence conversation from Monday as well. But Jack Black wrote in a statement, I was blindsided by what was said at the show on Sunday. I would never condone hate speech. It's not hate speech or encourage political violence. It's not political violence. I mean, I think like you can say that like, I shouldn't have said that. It was a little extreme, blah, 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 blah. But to then say, in the world we live in, right? In the world we live in, we're like, I watched a little bit of the RNC. I shouldn't have done it. But people are saying insane things. And they're like legit doing racism and doing conspiracy theories. To say that this is on the level of hate speech and political violence is kind of intense. After much reflection, Black says, I no longer feel it's appropriate to continue the Tenacious D tour, and all future creative plans are on hold. You're a comedy rock band. Jesus Christ. I'm grateful to the fans for their support and understanding. Yeah. So let's see. In addition to their current tour, they've been scheduled to play a series of October concerts. Those are also canceled. I mean, I'm going to be 100% honest here. Here's what I understand of the situation. I understand that Jack Black and Kyle Gass have been really good friends, if not best friends, for like 30 years. Okay? So let's talk about this at the micro level and the macro level. At the micro level, like, this is your friend of 30 fucking years, and you completely hang him out to dry like that. I think that sucks. Like, someone in the chat said this. Yeah, like, Jack Black's always worried about Mario movie sequels and stuff. Like who cares? It's your friend. It's your guy. It's not like he did something. I mean, if Kyle Gass said something that was racist or horrible or whatever, it's like, yeah, then you say like, hey man, but like, what are you doing? I think it's like really shitty. And I think that Jack Black's old enough and has an established enough career that he doesn't need to do that. It's just being a bad friend. And Tenacious D literally has a song. I might pull up the lyrics to this. Let's see if I can find it. Lyrics. And if I find them, I'm gonna send these to Henry right now. Seriously. So Tenacious has a song called Friendship. Lyrics that say, verse 1, friendship is rare. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Friendship is rare. My derriere, when you find out much later that they don't really care. Wow. In verse 2, they're fighting a bear. Life's in danger and you don't even care because you're fighting a bear, presumably because you're with a friend. And then the bridge is, it's rare to me, say a prayer for me, because it's rare to be in Tenacious D, implying that to be in Tenacious D is a matter of friendship. The outro says, friends will be friends, they're running naked in the sand. Friends holding hands, they'll someday surely form a band. This is about them. Friends will be friends. They say that friends are friends to the bitter end. And, you know, as long as there's a record deal, we'll always be friends. As long as there's a record deal, we'll always be friends. So maybe that's the truth of it. Maybe the joke of it, because in the song Friendship is Rare, it says that the lasting nature of the friendship is dependent on the record deal, on making money off the friendship. And maybe what we took as a cynical joke about the nature of the entertainment industry is real. Maybe that's what Jack Black was always about. I think that's a bummer and it's sad. Now, here's the other thing I would say is, like, how quickly did, and I might phrase this clumsily, so Henry, I'll ask you to tap in and help me. Anyone in the chat, please tap in and help me here as well. This is something I feel like Chris Maverick probably has good thoughts on. Yeah, and someone said Kyle's agent dropped him. Let me just say this too, before I get into my other point. It is appropriate. People in Hollywood have celebrated the deaths of Palestinian people and supported genocidal activities from the Israeli military, and they're doing fine. They've said like actively Islamophobic things, and they're doing fine. You know? So in Hollywood, you can celebrate the death of Palestinian civilians. That's not a big deal. But you make one joke about someone who Hollywood has said is the worst person in the world, an existential threat, all sort of stuff, and then you cancel them? What are we doing? What are we doing here? My larger point I want to get to is, like, it feels like what happened very quickly is that liberals and the center left acceded to the bad faith moralization of the American right. Here's what I think I mean by that. You know, Donald Trump is before, said that the Second Amendment people should take care of Hillary. That's a coded way of saying killer. He joked about Paul Pelosi getting beat up with a hammer. If we're going in terms of pure physical violence, what was inflicted on Paul Pelosi was significantly worse than Trump's ear getting grazed. Someone died at that rally, and that's horrific, but I'm just talking about Trump right here. Trump supporters showed up on January 6th with a noose ready to hang someone. The vitriol and violence and in particular, the calls for violence from that side have been immense. The violent jokes, the homophobic, transphobic, racist jokes and rhetoric have been going hard. But then all of a sudden, this happens, and there's this call for a level of civility, which is purely strategic. And now you have to have Kyle Gass's career getting ruined for like a dumb joke. And the funniest part about this is, and mark my words here, like they're doing this whole respectability politics thing right now. Wait a week. Not even a week. Wait a few days. And all the crazy shit's going to be back, and they're going to be saying wild stuff, and Trump's going to be on the campaign trail jokingly encouraging people to, like, you know, kill the governor of liberal states or something. So I just think it's the lack of ability to just, I guess, hold a sense. I'm trying to go. There's a way I want to phrase this. I'm doing a bad job of. Maybe some of you could help me. I'll do the thing I do at least once an episode where I say, "Does this make sense, Henry?"
Yeah. Are you trying to grasp it? This concept of like discerning good faith and bad faith, and when systems aren't addressing that distinction, because I feel that so much of this, like, hey, if we prostrate ourselves in front of the bear will feel bad for us.
Yeah, well, then also, where do we fall in like free speech?
Yeah, like, you know is art all giggles and fun, or are there things we just like, oh, you can't say that because that's explicitly going to lead to suggested action?
Yeah, like if your whole thing is like free speech and they like cancel culture and wait, then what is it? I just want consistency. You know, someone brought up Super Herb in the chat, or Superb Herb said, "You hear about the Home Depot checker who got doxxed and fired for saying something similar?" Definitely, I did. I saw that from like libs of TikTok or whatever. I mean, I guess respect to the right in America for having such a. No. Okay, the message was held for review. That one I'll show.
I'm not even seeing that on my end.
Yeah. What's with this? Y'all better treat this. Yeah, well, those are both good. Sorry, guys. I don't know. That's never happened before, but it showed some messages and it made me approve them. Let's see. Chris Maverick says Trump can't not do this and arguably shouldn't. Actually, there's a whole thing about his rhetorical style being based on it. Zach MG points out that it wasn't Jack's decision to cancel the tour. Is highly likely the fallout from insurance companies. Hey, that's fair. Let's see. And then, yeah, Joshua says it feels in line with my Empire Rebels analogy in my tweet from the other day. Politeness is a cage in the face of fascist rhetoric. Yeah, I think that's the thing. There is the way that politeness can be weaponized, ending up to serve that. Yeah, Chris Maverick, if you have thoughts, you can share them here. Or honestly, Chris, I'll give you 5 minutes if you want to. If you're on Discord and you want to jump
in.
Chris, you're more than welcome to. I think we might have to like invite you into the room, or I think you can enter the waiting room.
I can drag you.
Yeah. But no pressure, Chris. You can also just share thoughts here. But if you want to jump in the waiting room, and we'll drag you in. But yeah, I think that's why this whole situation, like, it feels. Yeah, Eric brings up the video on politeness. Yeah, politeness is this like political trap. You know, I think, and there's a weird false equivocation of politeness with being ethical, with being humane. You know, I think there's ways to be critical of these things that don't involve being glib about attacks on folks and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. while I pause and we see if Chris wants to jump on. If not, truly no pressure, Chris, you can come on another time. He has to change rooms. So we'll keep talking while Chris does that.
Bringing up politeness and pop culture, it does also raise the question of like, well, should this all be considered just like farce for us to take away, or like, are we really like what are we trying to program with politeness here?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What is like the benefit? Because it seems like one could say in an instance like this, and to me, this doesn't seem contradictory.
Oh, Mav is here.
Say something. Okay, I'll finish my thought. Then I'm tapping Mav in. But yeah, I would just say it doesn't seem contradictory that one could be like, a thing that happened is horrible. We abhor violence like this. However, that doesn't magically cancel out the violent pseudo-fascist rhetoric being offered by people involved with this, and it doesn't mean that we should tacitly support them or whatnot. Okay, Dr. Professor Christopher Maverick, PhD, is here live from, I assume, Pittsburgh, and then he left, but then he's back. He jumped back in. The classic Chris Maverick in and out. Ooh, you're kind of going in and out, dog.
It's like,
let's see. Are you there?
Check setting.
It's a great audio setting day for us, guys. We're cursed audio-wise on the stream today. Wow. It's making me approve all these chat messages today. Oh, people are getting crazy. Courtney, everything you say, I have to like approve, it feels like.
That better?
Okay, guys, oh, yeah, I think you're here now.
I think so. Go ahead, give me a few more lines.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh yeah, we're all good and operational now.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the soapbox for a few minutes, Mav, so tap in. Let us hear about this.
Yeah, yes, I was not even camera ready today. Hi.
You look great, and you're actually matching my look from Monday where I had my tank top show. So
yeah,
I wish I would have done that again today.
Yeah.
Summer.
He's okay. Can Trump do this? Trump cannot be civil or vocally not part of this, this toning down the rhetoric thing I wrote a thing that you guys can look at, but Trump's got this whole thing, or Biden has this whole thing of, hey, we need to lower the temperature, tone down the rhetoric. Okay, toning down the rhetoric is not a thing. As a rhetorician, that's very complicated. What he means is he wants people to be civil. Basically, Biden and much of the neoliberal on both the left and the right, but much of the political class is asking for a level of civility that matches the way that the traditional Republican and the traditional Democrat likes to behave. We're going to have speeches about policy that are not to be taken personal. We can all be friends afterwards. This is disingenuous because the people that Trump appealed to, the way that Trump rose to power, and Bernie, and to the opposite sides, was they spoke directly to a sect of people who do not feel served by the political status quo. So when you are an Appalachia voter, the kind of people that Vance is trying to take part of, or you're a working class urban voter that Bernie is talking to, the reason that a Bernie or a JD Vance or a Donald Trump appeals to you is you feel like they're talking to you in a way that your Joe Bidens, your George Bushes, your Barack Obamas have not before. Like you feel like somebody is listening. Whether they are or not is immaterial. Like I'm not arguing Trump's a good person or that he's good for these people. I'm arguing that he has spoken to them in a way in which they feel listened to. When he says, I wish that somebody would rough up these illegals. I wish that someone would rough up, someone would kick the ass of Colin Kaepernick, right? He is speaking to a problem they perceive. Trump is all about violence to people that a certain sect does not like for whatever reason. Yeah, racism, sure, but you can't ask him to let that go and think he's going to do that, because essentially what Biden is calling for is, hey, let's all agree that you should play on my terms. Trump's not going to play on Biden's terms. Trump is very, very good, and people get very confused when I say this. Trump is a very charismatic man. He is very good at being a bully. that
Yes.
and to assume that he's going to not be a bully because well, because you've asked him to, or because he nearly got shot in the head. He's not going to change roles now, because he's running for president of the United States, and he's running largely on being able to do this thing that he's very good at. He's not going to stop, because then what's he going to do? Stand on policy? Come on. Like,
Yeah.
like that's not a thing he's capable of. So why would he? So it's just a weird ask, and it's been gross to watch. It's basically been Biden saying, and I get his point, and I don't think Biden's being insincere. I think that the only way he sees of solving this problem is saying, well, no one's ever shot at me, so it must be that I've been doing everything right. So let's just all agree to act like me. It's the way Biden solves every problem.
You know what it reminds me of, Chris, is like some of the bad characters or the villains on reality shows and dating shows. Because this thing will happen where it's always the evilest people on a dating show will find a way to turn themselves into like a victim to get other people to treat them better and tone down their rhetoric, and they like let the smoke clear, and then they just go right back to being super evil.
I'm not even saying
And
it's because he got shot. That's not the point. It's that. So you had the stream where you talked about political violence a couple of days ago, and I've been talking about this a lot recently. And yes, there's a difference between a January 6th and what happened 3 days ago. There's a difference between between a BLM riot or Trump sicking people on the tear gassing the people on the White House lawn. Those are political violence. That said, even the thing that happened a couple of days ago, no, I'm not law enforcement. I don't know I don't know the actual motive of the shooter, but I'm gonna take a wild stab at it and say that the guy shot at Trump because he thinks he's an asshole, and Trump's an asshole. And again, I'm saying he's good at it. I'm saying that's one of his benefits. But the weirdness isn't that someone took a shot at the president or the former president. The weirdness is that it took this long, because his entire persona is trying to be the divisive personality. That's what he's good at. That's it. And I think it was Jeb that once said it. It might have been Marco. No, or maybe they both did it. Jeb and Marco basically tried to try the Donald. You can't insult your way to the presidency. Well, yes, he can, and he did. So if you're going to be the heel, to use a wrestling term, I mean, it's all kayfabe. If you're going to be the heel, sometimes people are going to take a shot at you. That's what happens.
Yeah. You just came on and cooked. You know, you stepped into the kitchen and you know, the pans got hot. No, but it was really helpful. And I think you're right. And I think it's just it's one of those, it just feels like such a weird moment now. And I'm sure a lot of you in the chat feel like this as well. It's like we see the thing happening, and it's like we're yelling at the TV. Like it's like when you see a horror movie and you're like, don't go in there. No, if you go in there, this thing's gonna happen. Like that's happening on such a large scale and no one can hear us. So
all right. I'm going to go back to yelling at the TV now. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for having in. Appreciate it. Everyone, it's Dr. Christopher Maverick, PhD, a host of Vox Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to Vox Podcast if you don't already. Great show. They have a great crew over there. Let's see. Let's take a look at some emails. I'm going to have to wrap up a little bit earlier today. And sorry for the shorter streams in some cases, guys. I been home the last couple of weeks due to some production mess around stuff on our end, but I think we'll be back to normal next week. So let's see. There are, there's a lot of good emails recently, guys. There's a lot of good emails. I'm going to see. Okay, here's one. I'm going to start with an email from Barry. Hopefully I can say Barry's name. It seems like they didn't say I couldn't. But Barry said, congrats on my Totally not real hypothetical daughter's first birthday. Thank you so much. And Barry recently found out they're going to be a dad, excited but scared. Says, what if I accidentally raise her to become the next Hitler or a Cowboys fan? I want to know if you have advice about being a new dad and if there's something you know now you wish you knew when you first started. Keep up the great work. Your live trips are a highlight. I love watching you on Company Time. Thank you so much. I'm not particularly good or experienced dad. Haven't been one for a long time. I will say one thing is that, like, it's very easy in early parenting. You get obsessed with these metrics because a book or something will tell you by this month they should do this. By this month they'll do that. Don't worry, they're going to do the thing. It's not. These kids aren't friggin' robots. They're weird organic beings in particular environments, and they always do the stuff. I will say this is cliche to say, but take as much time as you possibly can to be with your child, because I've yet to find myself in an instance where I've thought to myself, "Oh, I wish I would have worked more this year," because it's corny to say, but you can't get the stuff back, and it goes really quickly. And I'll also say the thing that I found very surprising when you have a kid is that early on, it's actually like there's not a lot to do. They sleep and they eat and they sleep again. And especially if you can get time off of work, make meals, contribute how you can. But it's shockingly simple in ways that I think are great. But I don't know, just embrace it. Let yourself feel things. It's a wonderful time. So let us know how it goes. Let's see. There's a longer email here from Sarah in response to Monday's stream. And Sarah, if you see this, I'm going to kind of like summarize. So hopefully that's okay. You say some nice stuff and we appreciate it. You say, when discussing Rent's views on power and violence, this references Monday streams. Check it out if you want, if you didn't check it out. You mentioned that the individual lacks power when compared to the collective. Is this concept actualized in America's culture wars? When the American right targets immigration, DEI, CRT, and transgender individuals, is this an intentional act to isolate specific groups of the left that would have more power if they were treated as a collective? I kind of think so. Like, I think there's a potential atomization there when we focus on identities. And I think in general, on both sides, neoliberalism is really good at atomizing people into groups rather. Because, for example, if we think about politics as like, well, there's the white working class, and there's women, and there's trans people, and there's people of color, and there's people from there's immigrants, whatever. All we're doing is taking one big thing, which we could call, let's say, like the working class, which might have a certain amount of power on its own, and turning it into a bunch of smaller groups, which benefits those who would not want the working class to have power, in my humble opinion. You go on to say, reading Wretched of the Earth changed my view on the use of political violence to enact change. Previously, I felt that a universal stance of nonviolence was the most ethical standard for political change. Fanon's description of the colonizer creating a relationship with the colonized that is based on violence caused me to consider reciprocal violence as self-defense. And that's, we talked about this in Frantz Fanon's work. I mean, I heard an interesting counter to that once from this philosopher, Peter Hallward. Haven't read his work recently, used to like him a lot. And he had this interesting pragmatic take on political violence and nonviolence, which was that he is a supporter of revolutionary nonviolence only because the bad guys have more guns. And that, as he saw it, any like emancipatory or revolutionary project would always lose if, the battlefield was one of violence. Sarah goes on to say, a bit off topic, but The End of Wretched of the Earth is the most powerful section of any nonfiction work I've ever read. Drives home the psychological effects of colonization that Fanon describes in the rest of the book. His description of the effects of PTSD on the individual hit pretty close to home, and years later, I was diagnosed with it. Very sorry to hear about that, Sarah. So that was interesting. I've never read any of Arendt's works. I'm especially curious about women's perspectives in philosophy. Where would be a good starting point for reading her works? What other works by women in philosophy would y'all recommend? How do y'all think gender and race affected Arendt and Fanon's views of power and violence in politics? Thank you so much. Arendt, I'm not the biggest expert on Arendt. She has a book. Maybe I'll Google this really quick. I want to say something like On Violence. Yeah, she has a book called On Violence. You can check out. I think if you like Fanon, I think that Simone de Beauvoir, Sex, Ethics of Ambiguity is really interesting to read because, Simone de Beauvoir, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Fanon, they all like hung and read each other's works. And I think there's a really good overlap there. And I think that there's a lot of overlaps between de Beauvoir's perspective on what it means to be a woman in society and the way in which we sort of create the figure of the woman. And the way that de Beauvoir thinks about this is like woman is always other to man, and man is this universal subject type. And of course, Fanon says that like white man is the universal figure of human, and that black man becomes something other to that. So I think there's some good overlap there. And when you say, how do y'all think gender and race affected Arendt and Fanon's views of power and violence in politics? I do think that in general, if we're taking seriously systems of oppression and we're looking at race and gender as they play into these things, you have to, if not prioritize explicitly, you have to at least value the perspective of those whose subject identities are more affected by that. And here's what I mean by that. Like if a cis het dude is like, well, I just don't get the trans thing, and here's why. I'm kind of just like, that's cool and all, but I don't care as much about what you think because the stakes of this aren't like your material identity. So, there you go. Good emails, guys. Good emails. Maybe one more I'll hit really quick. Is someone being froggy in the chat?
A little.
Wow.
Just the typical froggy? Jared stuff.
Oh, cool. He has his own channel. You can go watch it now. You don't have to spam our chat because it's really annoying. I'm also a singer. I think if you didn't know that. So there you go. Again, thanks for hanging out in the chat right now. Glad to see all of you. As reminders, you can always check out Yes Please if you're trying to get that coffee. We have our Patreon. I always encourage you to check that out if you have the means. If you don't have the means, it helps us out so much when you show up, when you like the stream, when you click the little bell so you know we're coming live. All this stuff helps a ton. And I hope you really, really know that. I'm also going to let you know, the people who are watching right now, there's been more drama with like the BetterHelp thing, and I had to be on some crazy calls yesterday. And like, guys, I hate doing things. I hate being a part of businessy calls. Oh my God, it's terrible. We got an email from someone. Did they say we could say their name or not? From Rinny. And it's a really nice kind of like thank you email. And in it, they say, thank you for your reminders that we are human, we are learning, we need to stay kind to one another. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the way you find positivity in what we're doing. And they say that they're experiencing a lot of existential anxiety around the political breakdown of our country and that we helped. They watched hyper normalization and it actually made their anxiety go away. That's amazing. They're focusing on their work, their family, and their community and being present. And I think that's awesome. And they say, thank you, Michael. Thanks, Henry. Thank you to Lux and everyone else that works at Wisecrack to bring message to the YouTube airways. Shouts to Amanda. Shouts to producer Olivia. Means a lot. And I do like the idea that someone could watch hypernormalization, which for some might be an anxiety-inducing experience. I think is important because sometimes it's like understanding things can help the anxiety go away, even when it's bad stuff, because then the anxiety isn't abstract. At least it's focused on understanding how systems work.
I legitimately think that's one of the actual benefits of art. It helps you prevent the sort of emotional override an authoritarian or a fascist can take advantage of if you haven't fully explored or come to comfort with yourself. And seeing weird art that takes you weird places allows you to do that without harming yourself.
Yeah. But again, there's a few more emails I do want to get to that are just longer that I feel like we could have a 20-minute discussion about. So please do keep sending us things. Also, during the week, if you guys see stuff that you want us to check out, email us at wisecracklive666. If you're on the Discord server, which exists, which is why Mav was able to hop on an instant like that, you can send us stuff there too. We have a Wisecrack Live chat over there. So we're always there listening, hearing, talking, seeing what you're up to. You know, I think that's basically it for now. We'll be back with a longer stream next week. And we got some special events next week. So I'm very excited about it. We have a video Friday on voting, on the ethics of voting. It matters. It's about what we're doing now. Please watch it. On Monday, we have a video on climate change, capitalism, and oil CEOs that think climate change is your fault with our friends Yellow Dot. That's Adam McKay's company. Very excited about that. And we'll maybe have some guests from Yellow Dot on the stream on Monday. We're going to stream at 10 Monday, and that video is going to premiere at 11. So we're going to like try to get everyone to go there. We'll make it a big party. Let's celebrate the demise of the planet together. Everyone in the chat, thank you for being here, for hanging out. Really like you guys and really appreciate you. Gabe Itch asked something. Mav, I don't know if he does. I don't really talk to him about it. I don't really talk to him. Not in disrespectful. We just don't talk. And we have 2 streams a week. The ethics of voting we'll get into soon. We'll get into the ethics of voting really, really soon. In the meantime, if you haven't checked out the political violence stream, that'll be up. This will be up. Leave comments on the streams because we always check them out. And Am Porkins is going to kiss the like button ever so sweetly. And that's all that matters. Okay. Catch you guys soon. We'll be back next week.
See you next week, y'all. Have a good weekend.